The 10th anniversary of DBD is fast approaching, something that is hard to almost believe. This of course will come with a new chapter to celebrate the occasion, a chapter that must be fitting of the hype and expectation. Today I'm going to cover the rumours and speculation as well as give my thoughts to who I believe it will be. Firstly, we must establish whether it will be original or licensed. There have been a series of successive licenses in recent DBD history, so in theory we would be due an original chapter. However, we have the Grimoire, an original chapter confirmed not to be the anniversary, so that leads me to believe that the 10th anniversary will be licensed. It makes sense to be licensed as this is the biggest moment in DBD history to date. There's a huge event and live stream being held to celebrate it, so for it to be just original to me could feel like a letdown. Now that we've established it's most likely a license, let's go over the criteria a license for the 10th anniversary would need. Firstly, it need to be a big license. It would also need to be one with a famous villain and one that has actively been wanted by the players over the years. With that in mind, let's start with the most likely contenders. Jason. Jason has been speculated about since DBD's inception. Every chapter he's mentioned and a large portion of the community have actively called for him to be included in the game. He is the main real iconic horror figure we've yet to see in the game. Jason is just one of them Mount Rushmore licenses. Now more than ever, the time feels right for him to join the flock. This is because Jason Universe has started licensing the IP out, most notably into Fortnite and Call of Duty. There's clearly a want from the IP holders to have Jason appear in other forms of media. There is of course the caveat of Jason's legal battles, which if you didn't know, I'll briefly go over. Jason's rights have been argued over and legally resolved between Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham. Miller owns Pamela, Camp Crystal Lake and the title Friday the 13th. Cunningham, who owns Jason Universe, has the rights to the iconic adult version of Jason with the hockey mask. So pretty much Jason could come into DBD but without any map or any other characters, unless Victor Miller agrees to it. This is a risk, but one that Behaviour would take, as Matthew Cote has been interviewed before, stating if they had a shot at Jason, then they'd take it, and that he has a standing invitation into the game. Jason has never felt more gettable for DBD, and the 10th anniversary would be a perfect time to include him. Personally, I feel it's fairly likely that he is this anniversary chapter. I know recently there's been sort of some debunking. Someone from Slasher Radio, who's previously got information, has sort of said in a Twitch chat that it's not Jason, but to me that's just speculation, and it makes a lot of sense for Jason to actually come at this time. So with that in mind, I'd say he's fairly likely to come into the game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him as this chapter. Everybody's favourite dancing clown Pennywise is another serious option that has yet to be considered. Pennywise, along with Jason, is seen as the big two that DBD haven't got yet, as Cote has said they both have a standing invitation into the game and the two biggest horror licenses that have not been in Dead by Daylight. Recently, there's been a lot of speculation that the teaser for the anniversary is hinting at Pennywise. A user on Reddit has put forward a theory that makes a lot of sense. If you cast your mind back to the Walking Dead hints before its release, Behaviour released clues in the form of grey letters in their roadmap, spelling out the phrase "the ones that live." The recent teaser was deciphered into saying "stop peeking." This Reddit user used an app to uncover whether any clues or hints were left. According to them, the letters intentionally made different are I and T, which obviously would hint towards it. An interesting theory, but one we should all definitely keep in mind, but also take a grain of salt with. As for the rights themselves, they've always been perceived as difficult to get, as Stephen King, the creator, is fairly stingy with the license, especially when it comes to video games. But there is a way around in this theory. Warner Bros. Warner Bros have been busy making It Welcome to Derry, a spin-off with input from King. So technically Warner Bros have the license to Pennywise in this series, and Behaviour could obtain the character from them to license into the game. So Pennywise is gettable in that aspect. The issue being, how long do Warner Bros have the rights to the IP before it can revert back to King? Similar to how Hellraiser was brought into DBD for a different license holder than Clive Barker. So the risk of losing Pennywise in a few years' time, once the rights may revert, could be a real possibility, which is obviously not something that Behaviour would want to happen. Nonetheless, Pennywise ticks all the other boxes. It is a huge license that has been wanted by DBD players for many years now. It would be a worthy anniversary chapter. As for the chances of it happening, I'd say it's definitely possible and more likely than I first thought, but not as likely as Jason seems to me. But still, I wouldn't be surprised to see it in the game. More of an outsider for the anniversary, but still worthy of talking about, is Slenderman. Slenderman is a hugely popular request for DBD and has been for a while. He has that creepypasta vibe that will go down so well in DBD. Now we've discussed that the license is definitely big enough to be the anniversary, let's look at the issues. Slenderman would be difficult to incorporate for DBD as he thrives on not moving, which for a chase-centered game like DBD becomes a bit of an issue. There have been interesting concepts about collecting pages instead of generators, which I would like to see, but for the 10th anniversary, trying to make a power and gameplay loop work for Slenderman I think would be too much of a risk that behaviour is not willing to take. The reality is this chapter has to be a success, and taking a risk on something for the 10th anniversary that is complex and may not work well is adverse to what behaviour have recently been doing. This is all before mentioning that Slenderman has different versions and different companies claim the rights to the character, so licensing him into the game could prove to be difficult. I'd love to see it one day, but for the 10th anniversary I just don't see it happening, but I would be pleasantly surprised if I'm wrong. On to Predator, the last of the big three along with Jason and Pennywise. Predator has often been speculated about for DBD, and we know there's a great relationship between behaviour and Disney. DBD has Alien, which is owned by Disney, who also own the Predator license, so getting the Yowta into the game would not be an issue and very easy to do. We've seen lots of skins for Alien, as well as a grid xenomorph skin that was featured in the movie Alien vs Predator, so if Predator does join DBD, the chapter will definitely come in with a survivor and most likely a new map. Predator is the most guaranteed license to come into DBD on this list. It's just a matter really of when behaviour pull the trigger rather than if they do. The design for Predator in DBD could be really good, one of the best yet, and something that would fit seamlessly into DBD's Museum of Horror. Despite all of my positivity for it, I still feel Predator isn't as likely as Jason is. This is because, as I mentioned, this chapter needs to be a bona fide success, almost as big as FNAF was last year. And while I love Predator and it's definitely a big license, the likes of Jason, Pennywise, or even a Darth Vader would generate a level of hype and popularity that Predator just can't. All in all, it's still a strong contender for the anniversary, but I see a few people getting downbeat if it was to be Predator instead of one of these other licenses, but definitely one to watch out for. This one is a bit rogue and not one I would have expected to be a possibility, yet here we are. Star Wars isn't exactly horror, yet it's been a big talking point for Dead by Daylight, specifically Darth Vader. This is partly because Matthew Cote revealed in an interview that he had been in discussions surrounding Darth Vader for DBD with none other than Disney. Yes, the same company who arguably has the best relationship with behaviour. Darth Vader is definitely big enough and would generate a level of hype and new players that a lot of other licenses can't match. It's clearly gettable and one that opens doors for behaviour that were previously shut. The only downside that makes me believe Vader isn't likely is the whole horror debate. Star Wars isn't horror, DBD is a horror game, so including Vader, who is arguably horror adjacent, could cause a stir in the DBD community and anger a lot of players. It could be difficult to make him work in DBD in a way that is typical with DBD killers. Aside from my own personal opinion, Vader is clearly an option that behaviour have considered, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes into the game soon. However, I don't believe that he has a high chance of being the anniversary chapter. This is because it's too much of a risk, again like Slenderman, so I don't think behaviour would use a license that they know could be divisive for the big anniversary release. So we've covered all the main options in my opinion for the anniversary. Of course there's loads of other licenses like Bioshock or The Last of Us that could be mentioned, but I don't see these as real possibilities for this specific chapter release. In conclusion, I believe that Jason is the most likely license, and I'm almost expecting him to be the anniversary chapter. Such is the importance of the character and the 10th anniversary, and I'd have Pennywise behind him in close second. I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them. This is of course speculation after all, but that's what I believe. Please let me know who you think the anniversary chapter will be and why. I'd love to hear it. Until the next one.